All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we are back talking more about the fall of the House of Usher. I wasn't sure if I was going to do other ones, but I'm glad I'm doing at least another one. At least one more, folks. And that's what they all say. I'll probably do all of them. But it's, again, this is pretty good practice for me to get back in the game. I like when you're enjoying what you're talking about, it is so much fun and easy to talk about things. And so if you are liking what we're doing here, because really what this channel is, and I keep talking about, I want to reiterate, that this is really my own personal blog, and talking about TV and movies and stuff is, just talking about a part of my life and what do I think about this and all and my feelings about things, and we go places. All right, so this is a conversation, and if you like these conversations, and you want to see more of them, make sure you're hitting a like and subscribe. That's it. That's the pitch. Okay, let's get into this because, yeah, if you listen to my last episode discussion on this show, man, like, I'm not really into, I shouldn't say into, I've just never read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. I can't, I'm a newbie at this. So, what I really like about this is there's a lot of anthology shows. And that's really kind of in the end what this is an anthology, that is putting front and center, Poe's biggest works and using this family of the Ushers as like this vehicle. So it's all tied together. So one big story that's Poe's, and then a bunch of little stories that are also Poe's put inside telling the deaths of all these characters. And I mean, there are tons and tons of anthology things. And some of them have had pretty decent concepts and some are just lame. I mean, I did like the original idea for like VHS before it just kept going and going and going and going and going. But the concept at least was interesting. This is like top tier level how you do this. This is craftsmanship. This isn't just like, okay, we just need a concept and then we have a bunch of filmmakers like, like Four Rooms did it really well. Put a bunch of people in a hotel. You have the bellhoppy, the center of the universe, the through line that can go through all the stories, and then you can do whatever you want in those stories. But this is just something on a whole other level. And again, I can't stress enough how good the writing is, and especially because this elevates the genre of what people, I guess, would call horror for this show. And there is horrific things, but I kind of feel like the horror is just kind of a byproduct. It's a consequence, if you will, since a lot of the show is talking about, consequences. There's always consequences. And if I'd have to make one complaint about this episode, and probably what would be in other episodes, is that and it's not really a complaint, it's just because this is such a new, like, to me, way of, like, such a unique experience. It kind of, ignores a lot of the tropes that like a show like Twilight Zone would have, where you get the narrator, he tells you what's up, and then you follow the character around or characters, but it's like a lot of super focus. And in this, because they're telling a story about a bunch of different people, when these next like 6 episodes, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are coming, that'll tell the whole, story of the demise of the Usher children. Um they can't since they're also really long, I mean, like, they're hour-long episodes, um, they're intertwining the rest of the family into the episode, taking focus off of the main character. That's not a bad thing, it's just a different way of doing it, and because they have all these, other stories going on, that also these bits of story that aren't about the main character, like in this case, it's about Perry, right? It's still integral because of who they are and how they operate and how they think. These are people that are on a whole other, the ultra, ultra, ultra rich that are basically, we are but mere ants to be, flicked off the table, just moved around how we will. There's a real disconnect, and except for within, they've got their own world. So in their small little world, where they just deal with the other one percenters, who do they have to go, to pay attention to? Who do they take seriously? Themselves. And so this whole thing with the mole has all of them just focusing on each other. Now, since this episode is, in the end about what happens to Perry, most of these people are all, when we go and visit the other children, in the episode, they're all like digging dirt and talking shit about each other, and mostly thinking about Perry. There's all sorts of evidence that they're working on with each other, all kinds of end arounds, just like on Succession too, except just done with like a lot more horrific flair. And like it's not an HBO, it's not trying to be an HBO drama, right? This is something else. This is, you know, again, this show knows what it is, and it's not that. But the way that they go after each other is similar. It's just a lot darker. Like these characters are a lot more like very, they're extreme, I think, or at least not, maybe not extreme. Maybe they're not extreme. Maybe I just think that these are extreme versions of the ultra rich. But as a comparison to the like Succession characters, these people are more like cartoons than the people on Succession. If you know what I'm saying. They're not, but if you know what I mean, like extreme versions of these things. And I'm like going all the way around because we're talking about the gimmick of anthologies. This is how it started. Oh my God, 7 minutes. Already talking about this that long. Just the concept of the anthology. But yeah, like if there was just the one thing that's different and it challenged me, it was the structure of the storytelling. And it's, again, it was not that that I found it to be bad. I knew the difference. I could see it happening, and there's always that, and not always, but sometimes there's that block where you run into something unfamiliar, and you want to, again, like a lot of things in life, we run into something that's unfamiliar. We're kind of afraid of it. We want to push it away. We want to not like it. We want to find reasons to not like it. But really, it's just really still good storytelling because they're giving you more character. Um, but again, I think it's also the characters is necessary or consequential to the plot. As I said, I've not read Poe, so getting to see these interpretations of the stories and not knowing them, like I'm sure that they're way different, different, especially when you're weaving in a story about the opioid crisis and AI and immortality and what that all means wrapped up into one. I mean, this episode is doing a lot. I fucking love it. So it's called The Mask of the Red Death, and I just love when people use like that the Q and the mask, like for masquerade, but with the Q. I just love that shit. Um, I do want to just write up at the top because it's on the thumbnail, right? Malcolm Goodwin from iZombie, who is also connected to Rahul uh, Kohli's character, well, he's a co-star of iZombie. There's a lot of connections that I found in this. But he's really good. He's also connected to Reacher, or with Willa Fitzgerald, because she and him are both on Reacher. So there's a lot of interconnecting going on here. But Malcolm Goodwin here is playing the young version of Carl Lumbly's character, the Aug- uh, August Dupin. C. August Dupin. And he's at the site of the grave in 1979, right? And what the thing that really struck me about this wasn't, like that this is him investigating what went down, right? Which I'm just gonna go on record because I try not to dive too much into like speculations, but since I'm doing like episode to episode, I want to be able to like make proclamations that I can go, oh, I was wrong about that. And my first like kind of prediction is that I know that they were in the bar. I know that young Roderick and young Madeline were at that bar where Carlo Gugino was. And they were in there kind of like we have to like kind of hiding out. And all I can think is whoever's in that grave was probably Verna, right? Played by Carla Gugino. That's my first prediction, and that she's the one following them. I mean, that's actually not that hard of a prediction. I was trying to find out the why, and I the only connection I can think is that either she was killed died after their bartending meeting, or she was already dead and kind of, like, already haunting them. Um, but I also thought it was interesting that there was somebody hanging around the grave, like, to be there to shoo him away, and not like, the people who work at the graveyard. Like, somebody's watching the thing, and again, it's just kind of that creepy, uh, like on the X-Files, always going back to the X-Files, like the shadowy government, right? The people within the people just show up and go, "Hey, who are you?" Like, and you're like, they're not affiliated with really anyone, but you know that they're a threat. And I feel like there's these guys out there that are just hired, you know? There's these people out there that just get hired to like do that kind of thing. Watch this grave. They probably don't even know who they're working for. You know what I mean? They're like hired from a guy, from another guy, from another guy who gives it to like some PI or some shit. But I did really like that they cast him as the young version of him talking about change, being a pain in the ass to these people. Um, he's a fraud investigator, so it's like it's showing where he, like, started out because a lot again, all connected because this is him and Roderick having this conversation, and, again, I just love this whole thing because you know it's all leading to, like, some fucked up, crazy full circle shit. Um, and this is where okay, the other part is, okay, the grave, the important thing being the grave. And that the person that was in that grave was a drug trial someone who died from after a drug trial, and these graves are getting taken. So, I mean, even while I'm having this conversation, I'm realizing in the conversation, right? And I love doing this too sometimes, is being, well, how could it be her unless they get, like, how did this all oh, there's just so many questions. I love it. I just love it. I'm not going to dig too much deeper on that. I should. But since I'm catching it now, just in while I'm recording, holy crap. Okay. So I don't think that'll work. Um, so yeah, when the his boss, when Malcolm or when the character Malcolm Goodwin's playing is call him Augusta. Um, he gets told like, okay, so say you could catch like basically the incarnation of like greed and foulness and all this horribleness, and you could sit across from it. What would you say to it? And that's exactly where we are. Like at the beginning of his like journey is at that desk being told, "What would you say?" And now here he is in all these years later sitting across from that exact person. Just a really interesting way to like start the episode. Um, and then him turning it as an older man, asking him about like the drugs and the money and that was there ever going to be a number? Was there a number high enough? And you know that the answer for these people is always no. There isn't. There is no enough. It's. I would equate the ultra rich as to be, and like I don't want to say that every single rich person that has a shitload of money. I would like to see. I'm not going to, but I definitely would like to say that they are all basically like it's like trying to be a modern like in some way a god on earth, like some sort of version of that, like to get to a point of wealth where you literally like could get yourself out of any situation, could basically affect any kind of situation if you wanted to. And there's this like kind of presence that Roderick has that like feeling of like he's just a man sitting in a chair, but and you could just kill him and take it all away. And it's fragile. But while he's alive, if you don't do something like that, he could do so much, like, with just a phone call. Like, it's kinda great. It's messed up. But we have him talking about how he's responsible for killing his son Prospero. I killed him. And this isn't a show where you're sitting there having a lot of sympathy. All right. These people are all to varying degrees flawed just like the rest of us. Some to more extremes than others. Like some people put forks to people's throat when they can't find their rare like eggs. You say gull eggs or some shit like that, black gull eggs. Saying, I could shove this right up your face and you'd have to leave it in there until you got to the hospital over some eggs. So I mean, and these hangers on like this showing him in this pile of bodies, this like modern day Zoomer Caligula, um, says a lot. And I didn't catch this until like super late, but I did finally catch on to it. Is that one of his hangers on that was somebody else? I love talking about actors and like the character actors, and I caught that Molly Quinn is one of his hangers on. She's from Castle and Doctor Sleep, another Mike Flanagan collaboration. But Molly Quinn was on like 173 episodes of Castle back when she was a kid, and her hair is all like cut real strange. And I hadn't seen her in a while, and I just knew I couldn't place the face. But she's in there. So way to go, girl! You got yourself another gig in Mike Flanagan project. But he's just like surrounded, like it's the whole like the social media, ultra young, ultra rich, modern day, surrounded by parasites in the Lost. It's like Jesse Pinkman. If Jesse Pinkman was born into a rich family, basically, right? He's all fucked up and he's smart. He's smarter than he looks, and that's something that I think you could say is a way to talk about like what this character, how he represents his generation, and how we can overlook that just because somebody's young and part of a generation that we are having a hard time keeping up with and understanding because, well, quite honestly, we made them this way, so we better start understanding what we did to them to make them this way. And not saying that way is bad, just saying to understand other people. And I don't want to get too far like in the weeds on this, but it, like they all kind of write him off because he's got these like hedonistic, let's just fuck and do drugs and do whatever, like, cause fuck it. Cause there is this kind of like some outlook on in the world of just, if nothing fucking matters, let's just suck and fuck and do drugs and who gives a shit. But at the same time, he understands a lot. And at least for what he wants and how he sees things and how he's treated in the family and all that way, all those ways, he's overlooked because yeah, he does make, dumb young decisions. They would think that he'd be the one being the rat, the one that'd be like, oh my God, I can't go to jail, like, oh no, I gotta, I'm young and I don't want to be like, they're all writing him off. And yeah, he is smarter than he looks. And he's also but being smart doesn't mean that you don't make dumb decisions. And that's something I've brought up, I think, occasionally, of people thinking smart and dumb are black and white. You're either, if a smart person does something dumb, well, that makes them dumb. Or a dumb person does something smart. Oh, so that makes them smart. No, it just means that they made a choice that was correct or incorrect. And it's a pattern that creates the thing, not just one thing. So I think that like we tend to just, but some of us tend, kind of like edit myself while I'm like recording. I have like 3 different ways where I'm like, I say it, then I say it, then I say it again, and all of them a little bit differently. But we tend to like write people out that are younger because we think that because they do X, Y, and Z different from us that they don't see big picture. It's just that their interpretation of like what where they take those facts, what they take those details and things that they're told and how they see and look at the world and how they interpret it. It's just and how they react and the decisions they make. And it's just different. It's not necessarily wrong. So it's just about perspectives. And I think that you could say that there is something to this story telling that part of it, if that's where it's going at all. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it, which is very much a possibility. Um, they go to this like meeting. He comes flying into this meeting about, serious stuff. And basically they tell him about these properties that gets him all excited about, well, oh, I could bake this is where I could have my big old Caligula fuck fest. And he's saying it, like, right out loud in front of the lawyers, and during this whole process, my favorite part of the scene is that it's obvious that by the looks on Mark Hamill's face and Henry Thomas that they're guilty, and they know it, and it's just I like that that show knows what it is enough to be able to be like, the people that are on the one side of the table with all the facts and all the accusations are right, and they're being like, they're not shoving it in their face. They're just stating facts. And then and they look all straightforward and just serious. And then you go to the other side of the table and they're saying it and they look, there's just that little crack in both their faces that say we're guilty. And I love it because it's almost comedic. And I love that the show knows itself enough that it's letting us know, like, we know, all right? Just you don't have to feel bad for these people. You can find them relatable, you can find them sympathetic, but in the end, we all know that these people are all just a bunch of people who've made really, 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 really bad choices that affect people out in the world in their real world anyway, and they just don't care. But one of the things I was also thinking about, um, is how Frederick comes at Prospero, and he comes at him really hard, and he's telling him, "I think you're the mole, and I can't wait to tell Daddy and shit." And I just thought that, man, I think he's coming on a little too strong, which led me to a prediction that I would say that probably Frederick is the mole, and I'm only going off of like other stories and how they try to put the person that's guilty right in front of your face and you don't see it. And if you look for the details, which would be a big detail for me, is someone who is adamantly about somebody else being this and being so super stoked about telling on somebody else just to put the blame away from themselves. I don't know. But again, if I'm wrong, I will talk about that. Um, and I was thinking about Prospero and how Roderick says, that if you're an usher, you're allowed in. You're just allowed in. The gates are open. And but it also says a lot about like us as people, like, yeah, if he's born into it, right? And he didn't come into the family. Let's say he didn't come into the family until he got a little older, right? And he's just like, yeah, this is your family right or family birthright, or maybe he's in their lives from the beginning. I don't know what Roderick is. Maybe we'll see more of that as the series goes on. Um, but being an usher isn't all it's cracked out to be. Like, yes, you get all the money and everything else, but you are psychologically going to be so fucked up that that's the price, and the price doesn't ever seem to stop anybody from doing it. You ever notice that? How many really, 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 really rich people or people that could have this position, How many would say no, even though they knew it's that struggle, it's that desire to be above everyone else, and that we will climb and crawl and stab each other in the back and hurt each other to get there, because that rarefied air still means you're like, I would say that they think better, but more just protected. There's more of a shield around you the higher up you get in the food chain. So if something really bad were to happen, there's a better chance of you surviving it. Um, Da, 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 da. So, okay, we get down to the conversation about vascular dementia. So I'm thinking that this is possibly why he's seeing ghosts, right? It has to be that old Roderick's trying to live and he wants, you got the people working on the monkey stuff and then with the devices, and he brings up vascular dementia and he's seeing dead people. So I think that has to be big old tie in here, and maybe it's clear to everybody else, but I don't know because it's the way that they're doing it, and the way that he's not coming out and saying it's him, but it's him probably. And I mean, who knows? It could come out in the 11th hour that it's his granddaughter or some shit. I don't know, but I do still like how they do the ghosts and the spirits or hallucinations or whatever they are, where they're just always off camera and you see him like have a reaction and then you don't see nothing and they go back and there it is. And it's not the thing that I love about it is it's not a jump scare. You could jump if you were sitting in your chair, but it would be because you were actually scared, not startled, as South Park like to put it. I'm so startled. So just again, the way they scare you is, I mean, first off, you're getting lulled into you might be hearing like a horrible, horrible, horrible dark story, but you're so sucked into it that by the time they throw something at you in the corner of your eye, you're not ready for it because you're just so riveted by the storytelling and what they're saying. Just freaking masterful. Um, but leads to this whole thing about like how the whole thing started with this guy, Rufus Griswold, played by Michael Trucco, who, again, another alumnus. He was in the movie Hush that also had Kate Siegel. And he was also in the very much like I really liked it, and I really need to rewatch it one of these days. Is the Battlestar Galactica from I don't even know, like it was a long time ago now. So when you say the old Battlestar Galactica, you have to say the newer, older Battlestar Galactica. Um, as this Griswold guy, and it's basically the setting up of the whole Fortunato company and how this in this office is where it all started, talking about devices, talking about AI, talking about immortality. And it also leads to where you have Zach Gilford and Willa Fitzgerald playing the young versions of Roderick and Madeline in this. And holy crap. All right. First off, Zach Gilford's good in this. He was great in Midnight Mass, but that was a starring vehicle. Now he's part of both ensembles, but his position's a little smaller in the show. But boy, does he have a great moment with Rufus Griswold in his office. And same, if not, my jaw was kind of on the open, like hanging open when Willa Fitzgerald's sitting there talking at the table with everybody about things and talking about AI and shit, or well, just talking about the future basically. And I I I watched Reacher, and Willa Fitzgerald's performance in that was like, again, you can talk about like how the material brings out the performer, and Reacher, as kind of entertaining as it can be and just kind of like dumb fun to me, you can tell that like when you give somebody a good script that's a good actor, suddenly their performance is like way different and way can be way better. And Willa Fitzgerald's acting in that scene, I was like, who the fuck is that? That can't be the same girl from Reacher. It can't be, but it is. So holy crap. Keep an eye on Willa Fitzgerald, folks, because her as young Mary McDonnell, holy crap. And then, like we only get like a couple of minutes with Mary McDonnell in this, and man, is she just, I mean, again, you give people good material and they're just having a discussion about like their family stuff. And it's just riveting. And I'm more riveted in this. I'm more willing to rewind and rewatch and take more notes on this than I ever did Succession. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that this hits me more. Succession's a fantastic show, folks. No one's taking that away from you, but this is my Succession. I love it because it ends with everybody dying, which is how I wanted Succession to end. But I accept the end of Succession because that's the more realistic way. Even if they didn't let dude, spoilers, do what I wanted him to do at the very end of the episode. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And I don't have to spoil it. But this is more like wish fulfillment, watching all the people from Succession get fucking killed. Anyway, where we got here? I took a lot. Look, can you hear this? This is a piece of paper with a lot of notes. I promise you. Um, we get to see how Juno met Daddy. This was a little cringe. This is a fantastic episode, and it's a little cringe. I'm not exactly sure why they needed the young bride, unless it's part of the story that there's a young child bride or some shit. She's played by Ruth Codd, who I have no idea who she is. I thought I did. I thought she was unique enough for me to go, oh, she's from this thing. But no, I don't know her at all. But I thought it was a little, it just kind of, the scene was probably the most awkward because it just felt like it didn't belong here. Other than the granddaughter seeing her grandfather be human and having, seeing her walk in with this girl on his lap doing, what were they doing? Not sure if she was just sitting on his lap or if there was something else going on. The way they moved really fast told me, well, I don't really want to know. Let's see. Oh, and so we get to the end of this, right? Because he's been setting up this whole party. We get the whole foreshadowing thing of like the sprinklers that they want everything to like rain down on people, yeah, and like they cut into something else. And you just knew, or at least I did, that like as soon as they talked about this was going to be the thing that did it. Because when you see the ghost or the spirit or the hallucination of Prospero, I love it because it's like a Roman name, like Caligula, and there is mention of that in here. This is how he wants his own like fucking special sex place. Um, you just know that that's going to play a huge part in the end of this. And I also need to mention him, Prospero, going to Frederick's wife and basically telling her that he's got the like best dick to do things to her and she should come to the place. And it's like working in some fashion, even though she's standing there saying, how dare you? And he's just like hitting her in all her repressed kind of moments of like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm the brother and that's hot. You're hot. He's hot. La, la, la. Being with you might be hot. You should come to the party. And she goes. And I mean, I guess just by her like having her be a part of this, you knew she was going to go. I just didn't know how much she was going to be involved in. And I still don't know how much of a part she had involved in there because I don't know if she left. She was moving. She didn't seem to be moving towards the door. So whatever happened to her, we'll have to wait to find out in an upcoming episode. But she was there. She goes. And at this party, everybody's got their masks on. He goes and tells her, I'll see you in a room with mattresses on the floor for floors or whatever. And this is where we, enter Carla Gugino in the mask and the dress and the woo 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 va va voom, kind of like Jessica Rabbit with, celebrating. She looked like the girl from Deadly Class with that mask on. Is all I'm saying. And either one is great. And she's just kind of like a harbinger, really, except slightly more than that because. Like after she has like this meeting with him, right, telling him all the things, like basically giving him like, oh yeah, he thinks he's gonna have sex with her, and really she's just talking to him about consequences that you and how you were born. And like they bring that up about his heritage at the beginning of the episode, and it comes full circle here of her talking about it. Like, you're here consequential now. Everything that happened to you, all the things that blah 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 led you to this, it's kind of not his fault. You were brought into this world by accident. And now here you are at this big moment, and you're like talking about the fun part about this was like the nearly realized idea when you're right about to accomplish something great. And it's like, yeah, that it's like edging or something, like where you're just like you're almost there, and then like once you get the thing, there's that burst, and then everything else is kind of like like it doesn't go anywhere but like down eventually from that, right? Because then you have to like find that feeling again if you're getting like an addictive personality or whatever. I don't know. But I loved that there's always consequences. You are consequence, and tonight you are consequential. And when she just up and leaves the room, right? and he follows, and she kind of like she had seen Frederick's wife in there before, and she kind of gave her a look, and then she went after Prospero. When she comes back, and you look around, and she's telling certain people to go. And she goes to Frederick's wife and she says, "Go now." And we don't see her leave. It looks like she's having a good time still. So is she dead? I don't know. But she was definitely telling specific people to go. So if she's there, she's not there, or is she just a voice in someone's head? Like she's the voice in the bartender's head, she's the voice in this guy's head, and she's the blah blah blah. Like probably the people that worked there, probably the people that were hired to go into this place were the ones that she told to get out. I think that's what it was. Like these are just people who took a job. They are not a part of this. The rest of the people in here, the hangers on, all the because everybody that was in that room, right, that died were all Congress people and celebrities and just whatever. So there's a lot of death that happened in that room or potential death. Like how many people survived, we don't know. I mean, and so yeah, she tells them to go, and that's really interesting. And they all melt. I would okay. I'll say this: it was the most toned down scene of people melting than I've ever seen. I thought it was, and look, I'm not saying it wasn't screamy. I would have thought it would have been absolutely like the hard, like when people say, "Hey, you got to watch the Fall of the House of Usher," but when you get to that scene, you might want to turn away. I was expecting like absolute carnage, like just like screams that will haunt your dreams. But I think they probably had to tone it down a little bit, but it was fucking amazing. And just a pile, like just at the like the beginning of the episode, where a pile of naked bodies all strewn around each other, and here we are, the same thing, just melted. And she puts the mask on him, and it just hard cuts to boom, Fall of the House of Usher. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Any like I said, any problem I had with it, I was able to talk my way out of because it was just simple, a different way of storytelling, and I just had to get into it. I had to understand it and accept it and go, "Oh, this is what they're trying to do. Cool." Because it does add to the story. So anyway, folks, that is my thoughts. All 37 minutes and well, almost 38 minutes of going down rabbit holes to talk about episode 2 of The Fall of the House of Usher. So once again, if you are liking what we're doing here, don't forget to hit that like, bell, subscribe, all that jazz. Otherwise, we will see you probably on episode 3 in at least a day or two. Have a great day. Be good to each other. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.